Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Note-Taking Skills Workshop hosted by the Frederick Douglass Academic Success Center. One must know how the brain works in order to retain information better. We're going to begin by discussing the rules of the brain. When receiving new information, the brain builds on prior knowledge, seeks patterns, seeks meaning, seeks to condense, seeks to order and organize. This indicates you must do something with your notes, which is considered active learning, not just read over them, which is considered passive learning. Now let's discuss passive learning. Passive learning is the form of learning where information is internalized without receiving any feedback or practice. An example of passive learning is passively reading or watching videos to retain information. This type of learning dramatically reduces comprehension, and a big chunk of learning goes to waste. Active learning helps retain information better, as well as complements the rules of the brain, which we previously discussed in slide 1. So why note-taking? Note-taking promotes active listening. It provides accurate record of information. It encourages restructure of information by interpretation, which gives meaning, condensing, and organizing. And if we can remember, these corresponds to the rules of the brain. And it also provides repetition. What are some characteristics of good notes? Good notes are organized because the brain seeks organization, as we can remember. Good notes distinguish main points from details. It includes examples, indicate lecture patterns, allow for self-testing, and use abbreviations. We're going to go into detail on each of these points and why this is important when taking notes. Now that we know the characteristic of good notes, let's briefly discuss the note-taking format. All notes should include the course name, the date of the lecture, the section for notes, the section summary, and a section for self-test such as Q column or predict test questions section. The Cornell method corresponds with the characteristics of good notes that was mentioned earlier, as well as the format. The Cornell method is a system that encourages students to reflect on notes by summarizing in their own words. The Cornell method also allows students to take, review, and organize notes in a shorter time period. So this method is going to be effective in a shorter amount of time, and that's why it is the most popular amongst professors and students. We're going to look briefly at the Cornell method format. As you see, on the left-hand side, you have key terms or predict test questions, or if this was a math subject, equation. Then on the right side, that's where you would take your notes. And at the bottom of the page, that's a 2 to 3 sentence summary of what is discussed on that particular page. An alternate method is the T method. The T method is formed by having your notes at the top of the page as you form a T with the summary to the left and the questions to the right bottom portion of the page. These methods can be used at the student's discretion. Make note-taking work for your brain. These are the steps that you will complete before, during, and after the lecture. Step 1. Before the lecture, you format your paper. This is the time where the student would choose the preferred method out of the regular Cornell method or the T method. Step 2, during the lecture, you will organize, have shortcuts and abbreviations. And this is to simply allow the student to keep up with the speed of the professor. An additional tip is to write in color. Your brain responds best to bright and fun colors. Changing colors during the lectures also keep you alert. Here is a list of note-taking abbreviations. Screenshot this list and use this for your next set of notes. Also, do not be afraid to create your own. After the lecture, write your key points and create test questions. If you glance at the example that is presented on the slide, the key questions that are to the left corresponds with the notes that is written on that page. The first question is the definition of hepatitis. The answer to this question is found directly in the notes. So be mindful to follow the format of the notes that you have taken, but also be open to ask yourself challenging questions. Also, think of questions that you may find on the test. After the lecture, create a summary. The summary is going to correspond to the notes that was taken on that page. This is a brief 2 to 3 sentence summary that can be easily surveyed as you are studying. Now that you have completed your notes, it is time to prepare for your exam. These are 7 steps that help you best prepare for an exam. Step number 1 is to read notes out loud to get information fixed in your memory. When reading out loud, we form auditory links in our memory pathways. We remember ourselves saying it out loud, and so not only form visual, but also auditory links. Step 2, cover your notes. Leave the left column uncovered. You will cover the notes that you have taken, and you will ask yourself the questions that you have formed. That's why it is important to be challenging with your questions, but also think of questions that will be shown on the exam. Step 3, ask yourself a question or explain a concept. 4, uncover the notes to see how much you remembered. If you knew it, go on to the next concept. If you missed, review the notes again. Be sure to check off concepts as you learn them. In the next study session, you will review what you know, but concentrate on what you don't know. Thank you all for attending the note-taking skills workshop. If you have any additional questions, please contact Ms. Janisha Beatty at janeysa.batey@morehouse.edu, or you may contact the general Frederick Douglass Academic Success Center email at FDASC@morehouse.edu. Thank you.